Alright, in this video we're going to go over actually putting variables into other variables and adding variables. So what we're going to go ahead and do right now, you can see I've added a couple different types just to demonstrate what types there are. You'll be able to go to this code pen and check us out. I'll drop a link to it and you'll be able to see all of these types and all of these exercises here. So we have a variable we want to know for our car dealership, right? We want to know the variable is total quantity of cars, right? So we just want to know like our total inventory, right? And so we're going to say that this equals two other variables added to each other, right? So we can say we only have two brands, right? So we have the Honda quantity plus the Toyota quantity equals the total quantity of cars, right? So we have the Hondas, we have 40 Hondas and we have 20 Toyotas, right? So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to console log out the total quantity cars, right? So there you see how we can make a lot of use of this, right? So if we want to have all these different quantities, we can actually add together all the brand's quantities into one variable, and all we have to do is call that, right? So we can use this variable later inside of our project to display the total quantity of cars, which could be an important data point for our car dealership, which we are making a web app or a website for. Okay. So moving on from that, another thing that we can do is we can actually kind of combine these things to make them a little bit easier to understand. So one of the things that I'm going to bump into is objects, right? So let's say we have a car brand of Honda and then we have a quantity of Hondas, which is 40, right? So maybe what we want to do is actually make some of these variables kind of work together, and we kind of organize the data there so that way we don't go through here and just have a bajillion variables that are all displayed outside of themselves, and you know, it could be kind of messy if we continue to do it in this manner. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to actually make a variable which will equal an object, right, for Hondas, right? So we're going to take this and it's going to be brand Honda. So just to back up a little bit, an object is started kind of like an array is. We haven't talked too much about this, but it's just has brackets that hold multiple things separated by commas, right? So these could be numbers, right? Same type of situation here inside of the object, right? So we defined our brand is Honda, and then we're going to actually, I'm going to build this out kind of more like we would an actual code editor there. It's always good to stay organized. So we're going to have brand Honda, we're going to throw a comma after that, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to say models, or I'm going to say Honda models, right? And that's going to actually equal an array. So we can actually put an array inside this object. So I'm going to take the opportunity to go ahead and put in Accord and Civic, right? So we have those in there, right? And then we're going to go on and we're going to say quantity of Hondas, right? And so we know that that is 40. But quantity Hondas and Honda quantity are actually going to be separate things. Don't get confused with that. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to say, actually let's just stay with that. That's good, right? So now we have three separate things inside this object, and now I know the kind of the general thing is like, well, what if I wanted to do this for Toyotas? Well, great. Well, then what we would do is we would go ahead and we would put this whole thing inside of a separate array, right? And so then we would make it an array of objects, right? So I just put those flat brackets there, and then we got curly brackets for our objects, and then I'll bump right into doing one for Toyota, right? So we're actually going to model the data structure like exactly the same, but we might have different setup here. So let's go ahead, say Toyota models and quantity Toyotas. And we'll say Tacoma and Camry. So just to organize this all out, here we go. There we go. Cool. So I'm going to clear all this out, variable, and so I'm just going to say model data, right? So this is an array. So if we want to call these things, we have to call model data, but then we have to call which like item inside of here. So the way that we call out arrays is like this. So if I take console log model data, right, I print out, then it gives me all of the objects. But let's say that I only want one of them, right? So there's an order. So you would think that the order of so there's two things in here, so the order you would think would be 1, 2, but JavaScript actually starts from 0. So it would be 0, 1, and then if there was another object, that would be 2, right? And then there's subsections of like under each of those objects, right? So you start out with this would be 1, and then or this would be 0, right? And then the brand would be the first item inside of the first item of the model data array. So I'll show exactly what I mean here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get model data, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the first thing in there because I just want to see all the Honda data, and that is the first thing. So 0, right? And so see, we just got the Honda. Actually, you know what? I forgot to change this. Toyota. Okay, there we go. Let's see, we got Accord Civic, and there's 40. I'm going to change this one to say 20. Right? So let's say that I want the Honda stuff, but I just want to see the models. So what I'll do is we'll go ahead and I'll console log out model data, right? And then I'm going to get the first thing in it. And then I'm going to put a dot, and then I'm going to say Honda models, right? And let's see what we get. There we go. We got all the Honda models. We got that whole array, and we could have literally had like all of the Honda models ever inside of that. So this is a kind of neat way to show how you would call out the data. If you needed to call it out of your variable, you would call it out like that. So we did get into a pretty deep section of calling out arrays and objects here. But in the next video, we're going to get into some more stuff to kind of show you more ways that we can manipulate data in JavaScript and actually get it out. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one.